All right, so one of the things for me is whenever I come to places like this, I'm always learning something new. And so in learning something new, what it does is it broadens my perspective. But here's the resounding thing that keeps sticking out to me is the fact that the more I learn, the more I realize that nothing has changed. And I hear people say, well, it used to be like this and it used to be like that. It was a physical deal. But now I'm talking about the psychological implications of what has happened. And more and more, and this is why I think it's important, because you have a lot of people saying, well, it's not important for you to go and see, and it's not important, and you're not from here, and you're not from there, and you didn't do this, and you didn't come from there. But yet they complain about the way things are, as if it's only happening in America. But this stuff is happening all over the world. And when you begin to dive into the history and the systems are not designed to change. Systems are designed to be in place, especially when you're dealing with imperialism. Most people don't even know what imperialism is. Anybody who knows what imperialism is understands that the imperialist is not planning to leave a place that it conquers. But if it can infiltrate the minds of those that it conquers and dominates, then they develop what is called the Stockholm Syndrome and have an affection for those who have dominated them. But then once you get years and years removed and generations, and then you have generations miseducating their own cultures and demonizing their own cultures and their own heritage. And then when you start blending cultures and heritages, one culture dominates the other. And then before you know it, you have people who are completely ashamed of their origins or a piece of their origins. Completely ashamed. They don't want anything to do with it. They're like, just it's something completely different. So when I come to West Africa and places like this, I'm here in Calabar in Nigeria right now, I see it clearly. You know, I see where, and not so much from the people, but I see it like back in America. I can kind of go back and say to myself, wow, this is how we really think. Someone asked on an Instagram post that I had, do people really make these comments about Africa in 2022? And absolutely. I mean, some of the comments that I receive from people, you're not African. Like, how do you know what my DNA is? You know what I'm saying? How do you know what my genetic makeup is? You don't. And 9 times out of 10, you listen to the little jackleg dude out here just peddling this stuff, telling everybody that they're not from there, and he doesn't know. He's just picked up some stuff, and maybe he has a few historical facts here and there, but people are listening to that. And then you have people who have been bred, and I always say bred like dogs, and I say that intentionally because it is like that. It is where like animals have been bred to think a particular way and to behave a particular way. But you see the same tactics that were used hundreds of years ago, and not even that long ago, maybe even 150 years ago, on the minds of the people. So we deal with the psychological aspect of it. Some people don't like to hear it, but it is what it is. And those same people who don't like to hear it are the same ones who complain, or are the same ones who are complicit, or the same ones who are complacent. Either one, however this thing breaks down, you begin to see this recurring theme over and over again. And for me, I just can't, just live in that space anymore. My mind is just like, there's so much more to learn and see and understand about the different cultures and the different people. But again, everybody's not on that page. And it's not that, someone's better who is on that page. It's just saying that I didn't want to be that person who lived that life, all of those years in that particular mindset, thinking like that, rolling like that, and then teaching like that, and encouraging people to be like that. I just couldn't do it. So again, I'm here in Calabar, in Nigeria, continuing this decolonization of the mind, continuing to learn, continuing to bridge the gap, continuing to liberate my own mind, because guess what? The imperialist isn't going to do it, the colonizer isn't going to do it, and I'll tell you like this, sure enough, a whole lot of people from where I come from not going to do it, because they're perfectly okay with the status quo and standing up for it and believing in it and defending it and all that other kind of stuff. The other thing that's resounding, and I think this is interesting, is, and it keeps coming up, you start seeing this, the role of religion in things. And I tell people all the time, if all you know is American religion or whatever, and from an American standpoint or from a Western standpoint, and you don't understand the depths of the historical implications, then you're doing yourself a disservice. I mean, because what you're doing is you're reteaching something from a perspective that's very limited. This little piece right here, and I don't care how many books you read, I don't care how many schools you go to, there's something different about when you come and you start putting those pieces of the puzzle together in person. something very different. Not to negate the importance of reading books and having teachings in a European, now I'm being facetious, but that's what a lot of people do. They say you're educated if you learn in a European institution. But if you don't learn in a European institution, you're not deemed as educated. And so what we've done is we've been trained to think that if we do it, whether it be seminary, whether it be on the collegiate level, whether it be on academic level, elementary level, I should say, somehow we deem that to be educated without understanding there's so many different forms of education. Again, and I won't even use the term it's not for everyone. I won't even say that. I think that's even to a discredit. Well, they'll say, well, Africa's not for everyone. Well, maybe everyone's not for Africa. You know, that might be a better way of saying it, because if you're willing to adjust your mindset and mature a little bit, then a whole lot of places, shoot, people can find their way in Europe with no problem, because they've been conditioned to do that. We have been conditioned to do that. We've been conditioned to have an affection towards those places and have a disdain towards what we perceive as Africa without even really knowing. Oh, I got a few African friends and they told me. That doesn't mean anything. If you haven't seen it for yourself in person, or maybe you did see it for yourself in person, maybe you didn't like it. Now, in that case, maybe it's not for you. But what I understand is that when you have an open mind and you understand the history and you understand the context of what took place, it puts you in a much better position to even show up in America. That's the deal. I see so many Black Americans, African Americans, Green Americans, Indigenous Americans, whatever kind of American you want to call yourself, who have no cultural or any type of connection with this part of the world. But when you come here, you see those people in this part of the world. All I'm saying is, let's free our minds. Let's really take the time to learn a little bit more, so that when we do complain, we can complain with solutions, that we can have some strength attached to it, and we can understand that we're in a global system, we're in an imperialist system, and how to position ourselves accordingly, instead of begging for people to accept us, begging for people to validate us, who don't look like us. Those who've imposed themselves on us from childhood, forcing us to pledge allegiance to things we didn't know what we were pledging allegiance to. All of that. Once you begin to start deconstructing all of these different systems that have been around us, that's where the freedom comes from. So we can have all the laws passed you want, but if you locked up in your mind, it means absolutely nothing. So until next time, like, subscribe, share. More on the way from Nigeria. Talk to you soon.